There are a lot of tents in Guild Wars 2. Almost every map in Tyria has a tent, and oftentimes there are a wide variety of different tents in each individual map. And today I want to go over my top 10 favorite tents across all of Guild Wars 2 because of the sheer number of tents, how often tents are placed into maps, and how many tents are very similar to each other. There are going to be a lot of general answers on this list as I try to highlight as much of this aspect of the game as possible. I really want to get the idea across that I was a little overwhelmed as I was making this video just because of how many tents there are and trying to decide which ones are my favorite. So let's get started. In the number 10 spot are the Priory tents. You can find Priory camps all throughout the world of Tyria, and you can find different tents inside of them, but I specifically want to look at these specific types of tents that are pretty unique to Priory areas. This smaller one is hexagonal shaped, while these two larger ones are decagonal. The smaller tent has a globe on top, the medium-sized one has this cute flag waving about, and the bigger one has a massive globe on top with some tinier globes on each corner of the tent, and the fabrics of the tent are inscribed with cool globes and other somewhat elaborate inscriptions. The smaller and medium ones are closed off for random adventures, but you can often go inside of the bigger ones to see supplies, different NPCs, and other decorations. I especially like it when there's a merchant inside because it kind of feels like you're finding refuge inside of the tent, especially in the Shiver Peaks where it is so cold, and you can make some preparations for your future travels. And I love how the tents are themed around the idea of the Durmand Priory with all the fun decorations and inscriptions on them. In the number 9 spot are the Astral Ward tents, where just like with the Priory, you can find the Astral Ward using a few different tents, but I wanted to highlight their big ones, where this may be the most unique tent on this list because it's not really made with any fabrics and it looks like a massive piece of sculpted metal, where in general it's just super cool looking. It's got a lot of the vibes of the Astral Ward with the blue and white color scheme, where I like how the exterior is this off-white color with golden trims, while the inside is blue and magical and spacey, and it's animated where it's moving across the inside of the tent. Where of course, you got a lot of different decorations like beds, food, medical supplies, different NPCs, and other decorations depending on which specific tent you are looking at, where the tents just serve as a larger pop-up structure, different field sites and whatnot for the Astral Ward to use. And I just think the main reason I like them so much and threw them on this list is just how unique they are compared to other tents in the game. In the number 8 spot are the Marifa Refugee camp tents. Now this spot is specifically going to one specific tent which you can find in a variety of different areas of Tyria and serve a variety of different purposes, but I'm just going to highlight the ones here at this refugee camp in the Crystal Oasis, where this looks like a very basic single room tent that is mass produced and popped up in this area to provide some safety for the different citizens of Ilona and the Crystal Desert fleeing Joko, Balthazar, and Krakatorik, where I just like the simple motto of these tents and also how they are super organized here. And inside you of course got some refugees, supplies, and the few belongings they could carry with them, but a very cool aspect about some of these tents is how you can open some of them as a part of the task, where you can find Choi and some other creatures hidden inside that the refugees need taken care of. And in one way, I like the aspect of being able to open the tents, but in another way, you can find some fun stuff in a few of the tents, like the birds in this one, all of the alcohol in this one, this family of cats in this one, and a variety of other secrets that you can find as you do this task. In the number 7 spot are the Divinity's Reach vendor tents. Now this spot is there for all the different market and vendor tents you can find throughout Tyria, and there are a lot. But I want to just specifically highlight the varieties around Divinity's Reach since they are both my favorite and likely to be the most well known anyways. Whereas you wander around the human city of Divinity's Reach, you can find many different merchants that have tents. You got this produce stand with a cool green tent, and right next to it is this wagon with a massive keg with a tent over it as well. You have these fabric stalls that have a little bit of a canopy over them, these larger tents that are like multiple tents put together to cover a larger area, this fun book cart that has a tent over it, and just so on and so forth throughout the city. There's a nice variety, and just having some tents spread throughout the city covering books or produce or clothes or other goods is just a fun, immersive touch to the city. In the number 6 spot is the Summit Peak Pavilion. This is a massive tent located in the Fields of Ruin that serves as the primary meeting location for the peace negotiations between the Char Legions and Ebonhawke, where I talked about this very recently in my top 10 documents video, so I'll just summarize it as being a really cool part of the game that I love a lot. And this tent is just a really cool model that plays into that story. The pavilion itself is an oblong octagon that is open on every side. The tent itself has the colors of Ebonhawke and has some seals of Ebonhawke embroidered in the tent. Then you got a bunch of different flags hanging all around the pavilions representing the major parties in play during these peace negotiations. The Iron Legion, the Blood Legion, Ash Legion, Ebonhawke, and the Crichton Ministry. Inside, you have the massive tent where the representatives of these organizations and kingdoms would sit to discuss peace with benches behind them for aides and other people. And of course, you got a lot of people just standing around and chatting about different things while servants help the endeavor along. And I just love the lore importance of this tent, but also how cool it looks and all the different decorations attached to it. In the number 5 spot are the Doric's Landing tents. I'm giving the spot to the 2 main tents you can find around Doric's Landing, which is the eastern docks of Divinity's Reach that Lake Doric used to go up to prior to the attack by the White Mantle, where because of the siege by the White Mantle and how Divinity's Reach is actively under attack, this area serves as a staging ground for the Seraph counteroffensive. You got training going on to help arm and prepare the citizens of Lake Doric, you got some medic stuff going on, you got some barracks stuff going on, you got some command stuff going on and so forth. Where you have these smaller tents that are pretty basic. Some are open on one end while others are closed, and there's nothing too special about them other than them just being cool. I always like a good blue and white color scheme. But then you got these bigger tents that are mostly white with some blue and red stripes, and they look super weathered, which is a really cool detail, but you can find them all throughout this area, covering supplies and some tables for the Seraph to sit and eat. One serving as barracks covering a ton of sleeping bags for the Seraph, and one serving as this command tent for Logan Thackeray and Nylia Steelpaw. And I just love how both of these tents look, but I especially love how they come together with all the different decorations in this area to make a really cool Seraph base camp. In the number 4 spot is the 2-for-1, and it is the Raleigh Pavilion located in Grothmar Valley, as well as the Pavilion of the Legions in Drizzlewood Coast. These are 2 pavilions that were both introduced to the game in the Iceweed Saga, with the Raleigh Pavilion being first. And they share the same motto as each other, but are found in 2 different maps, serve 2 different purposes, and have different decorations. The Raleigh Pavilion serves as a special location for Char of the 4 different legions to meet at and discuss Char things. You got a few soldiers here, as well as Krisha Stoneglow. You got some tables set up with traditional Char chairs, a massive bonfire in the center, a bunch of cups, a ton of papers, and some other decorations as well. Looking at the Pavilion of the Legions, this serves as the primary meeting point for the 4 united Char legions to stage their attack against the Dominion, which are the Char fascists who kill over and over across the Drizzlewood coast. You got a variety of Char, including Smolder, a big circular table with a map of the southern Drizzlewood coast back before the storm in the northern part subsided, a cool wagon, a ton of water spraying in from this massive waterfall and making all the Char wet, and a variety of other decorations that just work to make this a really cool spot. In the number 3 spot are the Ebonhawke Treaty Grounds tents. Going back to the same area where the Summit Peak Pavilion is at, we can see a wide variety of different tents located at the Ebonhawke delegation, which the Ebonhawke soldiers and representatives are using. You got a bunch of different tents that are grouped up throughout the grounds, which you can see inside of to find some sleeping bags, as well as various other decorations like chairs and bags. While the overall structure of the tent is relatively basic, they have the colors of Ebonhawke and also have a hawk's head statue on the front of the tent, which takes what is a relatively basic, albeit still cool design of a tent to an even cooler design. But you also have a larger tent located in the center of the delegation site that houses a ton of supplies that the Vanguard used for the Peace Summit, where this tent is so much larger and a different shape than the other ones, but it still has the same color scheme and also has a larger hawk head statue on the front of it, where I think this tent is cool, but it also gives the vibes that it's like a mother hawk looking out over her little hawk babies. And additionally, where this might just be me saying the blue door is blue because the person inside is sad or when the door is actually just blue, but I feel like this subtly alludes to the idea about how humans have separatists, and the Ebonhawke leadership has to keep an eye over the lower ranked file to ensure the security of the treaty. In the number 2 spot are the various larger wall tents you can find throughout the game, where this is another general idea of a tent that you can honestly find in many different places, where I'll highlight the ones located at the refugee camps around Amnoon, as well as the Astral Ward camp in Inner Niles, where these are very standard tents that are pretty large, and because of their size you can house a ton of details inside of them, but they aren't super massive like some of the pavilions on this list, so they still feel cozy. At the Astral Ward camp, you can see 4 sets of bunk beds used to house the Astral Ward units in the area, alongside some chests. Back at the main refugee camp in the Crystal Oasis, they are housing supplies for the refugees, and at the Amnoon Nobles refugee camp where the nobles are living since their district was covered in sand by the recent sandstorm, you can see lines of these tents, and inside are super well decorated areas where the nobles are living in luxury. But now for the number 1 spot, for my favorite tent in all of Guild Wars 2, and it has to go to the Carnival tents in Divinity's Reach. It only makes sense we close this video out by talking about a variety of tents, but I will say which one is my favorite at the end. The Divinity's Reach Carnival, potentially one of the most well-known stores in Guild Wars 2, takes up a lot of the space in the western and eastern commons. You can find a wide variety of different tents that the carnies are using to store apples, sleep in, house activities, and so on. You got tiny tents like this one, or this one, or this one. You can see groups of tents like these, some cool carts. I like this larger tent here, I like this massive castle with canopies and very unusual double centaurs printed on the walls. I like this massive tent that is covering Uzalan's mechanical orchestra, and, as promised, my favorite of the tents is Mina's shooting gallery tent. For those who don't know, there were additional activities being designed for the launch of Guild Wars 2 that never made it to the full release of the game. The two biggest ones are Bar Brawl and Mina's target shooting, both located in Divinity's Reach, where I really hope we get to see these in game one day, but you can see the set for this target shooting activities implemented into the game with some text from Mina saying that Codicus is paying for a private party at the gallery right now, which means we can't participate right now. Where the tent itself is incredible looking, I love the decorations inside of it and around it, and I absolutely love the idea of this activity, and I do really hope we get to see it one day. And that's my list. I hope you enjoyed. Guild Wars 2 has a ton of tents, and it has been fun to highlight a wide variety of them in this video. If you like this video, I have an ever-expanding playlist of top 10 videos that you can find on your screen right now, where if you want to get started somewhere, consider watching my top 10 documents in Guild Wars 2 video that I have released a couple of weeks ago. I hope you all are taking good care of yourselves. Have a good one, everyone.